There's something undeniably magnetic about standing beneath an ancient archway, a structure so much more than mere stone and mortar. It's a threshold, a boundary between worlds, where time itself seems to bend. Picture the weight of centuries pressing down on those weathered curves, the whispers of countless footsteps echoing through the ages. These arches weren't just built to hold up walls. They were designed to transport us, to serve as gateways into realms of myth, power, and mystery. And today, we're stepping through 30 of the most astonishing examples ever crafted by human hands. From the sun-baked deserts of Mesopotamia to the misty highlands of Scotland, these archways are more than relics, they're portals. Each one tells a story, whether carved with forgotten symbols, drenched in sacrificial rites, or standing guard over cities long swallowed by earth. Some were built to honor gods, others to intimidate enemies, and a few, well, their purpose remains shrouded in enigma. What if I told you one of these arches might still conceal a secret chamber, untouched for millennia, or that another was designed to align with celestial events so precise, modern engineers still can't replicate them? This isn't just a tour of architectural triumphs, it's a journey into the heart of human ingenuity. These arches are time machines, and with every curve and keystone, they reveal how our ancestors saw the universe. Were they marking sacred spaces, channeling divine energy, or simply leaving a message for futures they'd never see? The answers might surprise you. So take a deep breath, because we're about to walk through history's most spellbinding doorways, and trust me, you won't look at the past the same way again. The Arch of Titus isn't just a monument, it's a battlefield frozen in stone. Standing at the heart of Rome, this towering archway was built not just to honor an emperor, but to send an unmistakable message to the world. Picture the scene. The year is 81 AD, and Rome's grip on its vast empire is absolute. The arch celebrates Titus's brutal victory over Jerusalem a decade earlier, a conquest so devastating it left the Second Temple in ruins. But look closer and you'll see the real genius of this structure. Every carving, every symbol is a piece of propaganda engineered to awe and intimidate. Take the famous relief panels inside the arch. One shows Roman soldiers carrying off the treasures of the temple, the golden menorah, the silver trumpets, all rendered with chilling precision. These weren't just spoils of war, they were proof of Rome's dominance, flaunted in the very city where conquered peoples would see them. The artists even included a clever trick of perspective, making the procession seem to march through the arch and into Rome itself, as if the empire's power was endless. But the arch holds darker secrets too. Hidden in plain sight are symbols meant to deify Titus, blending his image with gods like Jupiter. This wasn't just about celebrating a military win, it was about rewriting history to make Rome's enemies seem destined to fall. Even the location was strategic, built along the sacred route of triumphal parades, ensuring every future victory procession would pass beneath Titus's gaze, reinforcing his legacy. And here's the twist: while the arch was designed to proclaim Roman invincibility, time had other plans. Centuries later, Jewish leaders would walk beneath these same carvings in quiet defiance, turning a symbol of their defeat into one of survival. The menorah depicted here even inspired the emblem of modern Israel, a stark reminder that history's winners aren't always the ones who write the last chapter. High in the Bolivian Andes, where the air is thin and the silence feels ancient, stands the Gateway of the Sun, a single block of sandstone that defies explanation. Unlike the triumphant arches of Rome, this structure wasn't built to celebrate conquests or emperors. Instead, it hums with a quieter, deeper mystery, one that still eludes modern scholars. Carved by the Tiwanaku people over 1,000 years ago, the gateway is a masterpiece of precision, its surface etched with intricate symbols and a central figure that some call the Weeping God. But here's what's truly astonishing: every line, every angle seems to whisper secrets about the cosmos. The archway's alignment is no accident. During the winter solstice, the first light of dawn pierces through the gateway with pinpoint accuracy, illuminating carvings that may have served as a celestial calendar. Some researchers believe the entire structure functioned like a stone observatory, tracking the movements of the sun, moon, and even Venus with uncanny precision. The Tiwanaku civilization left no written records, so these carvings are their only language, a code we're still trying to crack. And then there's the central figure, flanked by winged beings and clutching what might be severed heads or celestial staffs. Is it a deity, a shaman mid-ritual, or perhaps a guide to the afterlife? What makes this gateway even more intriguing are the local legends that surround it. Indigenous Aymara people speak of a time when the arch wasn't just a monument, it was an active portal, a threshold between worlds used by gods or star travelers. These stories gain eerie resonance when you consider the gateway's original location, atop a massive pyramid, as if it were meant to bridge earth and sky. Even today, visitors describe an odd energy around the structure, a sense that it's not quite of this world. Yet for all its grandeur, the Gateway of the Sun is just a fragment of a much larger puzzle. The entire site of Tiwanaku was once a thriving metropolis, a spiritual and political hub that mysteriously collapsed centuries before the Inca rose to power. Why was this archway spared when so much else was lost? And what might its carvings reveal about a civilization that saw time and space as something far more fluid than we do? Standing before it, you can't help but wonder if we've underestimated the Tiwanaku, if their understanding of the universe was something we're only beginning to grasp. In the heart of Rome's Forum Boreum, where the scent of sacrifices once hung thick in the air, stands a structure unlike any other, the Arch of Janus. This isn't your typical triumphal arch celebrating military conquests or emperors. Instead, its four massive faces stare silently in every direction, a physical embodiment of its namesake, Janus, the two-faced god of beginnings, endings, and every threshold in between. But why four faces? That's where the genius of Roman symbolism comes alive. The arch's quadrifrons design a towering square with identical arched passages on all sides, wasn't just architectural flair. It was a deliberate nod to Janus's dominion over crossroads, those liminal spaces where paths converge and choices unfold. Picture a Roman merchant pausing beneath its shadow before a journey, or a priest conducting rites as the seasons turned. Every passage through this arch was a ritual, a moment suspended between what was and what could be. The structure itself functioned like a sacred compass, its open sides inviting movement from all directions, reflecting Janus's role as guardian of doorways, wars, and even the calendar itself. What's fascinating is how the arch blurred the line between the divine and the everyday. While grand temples housed gods in splendor, this arch stood as a working monument to transition, a place where ordinary Romans touched the divine in their daily routines. Coins would change hands beneath its vaults, oaths were sworn, and soldiers marched through it before battle, all under Janus's watchful gaze. The arch's location at a major commercial and religious hub wasn't accidental. It was a reminder that every transaction, every journey, every new beginning was sacred. Yet time hasn't been kind to the Arch of Janus. Unlike its more polished counterparts, its weathered surface bears the scars of centuries' medieval modifications, stripped marble facings, even a stint as part of a fortress. But these marks only deepen its mystery. Why was this particular arch repurposed so dramatically while others were preserved? Some scholars whisper that its very mutability makes it the perfect tribute to Janus, a god who thrived in change. And here's a haunting detail. The niches that once held statues of deities are now empty, their occupants lost to history. Were they removed by invaders or quietly spirited away by those who still believed in their power? Standing before it today, you can almost hear the echoes of countless footsteps, merchants, pilgrims, emperors, all passing through a gateway that promised neither glory nor conquest, but something far rarer, the chance to step into the unknown armed only with hope. In a city obsessed with permanence, the Arch of Janus remains a testament to the beauty of impermanence, to the spaces between where life truly unfolds. Rising from the sun-baked plains of modern-day Iraq, the Arch of Ctesiphon isn't just an ancient doorway, it's a defiant whisper from an empire that once rivaled Rome. Built in the 6th century AD by the Sasanian kings, this colossal brick vault stretches 120 feet across, making it the largest unsupported arch of its kind in the world. To stand beneath its shadow is to marvel at a civilization that mastered physics centuries before modern engineering existed. The real genius lies in how they built it. Unlike Roman arches that relied on precision-cut stone, the Sasanians used thousands of fired bricks, each carefully tapered and layered without mortar, their weight and angle alone holding the entire structure together. One misstep in calculation and the arch would have crumbled before completion, but Ctesiphon's arch was more than a technical triumph. It was the beating heart of an empire. This was the grand entrance to the Tak-Khasra Palace, where Persian kings received ambassadors beneath a vaulted ceiling designed to echo their voices like thunder, a psychological masterpiece meant to humble visitors. The arch's curved walls were once covered in glittering mosaics and gold leaf, reflecting sunlight onto the bustling city below, a visual proclamation of Sasanian wealth. Even the choice of brick carried symbolic weight. Unlike imported marble, these were local materials, a statement that Mesopotamia's soil held all the grandeur the empire needed. Time, however, has a way of testing even the mightiest creations. Earthquakes toppled the palace's flanking walls, leaving the arch to stand alone like a solitary sentinel. Medieval chroniclers wrote of its resilience, how it endured invasions, sandstorms, and even attempts to dismantle it brick by brick. During World War I, British troops reportedly fired artillery near its base, yet the arch held firm, a testament to its builders' foresight. The real miracle, it still stands today despite centuries of neglect, its surface weathered but its form uncannily intact. What makes this arch truly transcendent is its place in cultural memory. For Iraqis, it's a tangible link to the golden age of Mesopotamian rule, a counterpoint to narratives that paint the region only through war and loss. Poets have compared its curve to the crescent moon, a symbol of continuity in a land of upheaval, and scholars still puzzle over one lingering question: how did the Sasanians engineer such precise acoustics beneath the vault? Some believe the arch's shape amplified specific frequencies, turning whispers into resonant proclamations, an ancient form of sound design lost to time. Standing before it now, you can almost hear the ghosts of silk-robed merchants and armored generals passing through, their footsteps echoing under a monument that refuses to bow. The Arch of Ctesiphon isn't just a relic, it's a challenge from the past, daring us to remember what human hands can achieve when ambition meets ingenuity. The Arch of Hadrian stands like a silent arbitrator between two worlds, its marble surface catching the Athenian sun with equal grace. Built around 131 AD to honor the Roman emperor's benefactions to the city, this arch is no mere monument, it's a carefully constructed statement about power, identity, and the delicate dance between conqueror and conquered. At first glance, it seems to embody harmony. Roman arches layered atop Greek columns, a visual handshake between two civilizations, but look closer and you'll find tensions carved into the very stone. The most telling detail is the pair of inscriptions facing opposite directions. On the side toward the Acropolis, the arch declares, "This is Athens, the ancient city of Theseus." Turn around and the message shifts, "This is the city of Hadrian and not of Theseus." It's a single structure with two identities, dividing Athens into myth and modernity. Hadrian wasn't just building gates, he was rewriting the city's map, positioning himself as both inheritor and innovator. The old Athens belonged to philosophers and heroes, the new Athens bore his stamp, complete with libraries, aqueducts, and temples funded by imperial coffers. What's fascinating is how the arch's design mirrors this duality. The lower half is pure Greek Corinthian columns fluted with precision, echoing the Parthenon's elegance. But the upper portion shouts Rome with its rounded arch and heavier proportions. This wasn't accidental blending, it was a calculated display of cultural appropriation, showing Athens that its golden age now answered to Roman might. Yet the locals weren't passive recipients. Some scholars note the Greek masons likely worked on the project, subtly tweaking proportions to honor their traditions. Even the choice of Pentelic marble, the same stone used for the Parthenon, feels like a quiet rebellion, a reminder that materials outlast empires. The arch's location reveals another layer of genius. It didn't just mark a physical boundary, it anchored Hadrian's grand urban plan, connecting the ancient agora to his new Roman quarter. Processions would pass through it during Panathenaic festivals, forcing Athenians to literally walk through Roman symbolism while celebrating Greek heritage. And here's the twist: despite its imperial messaging, the arch eventually became part of Athens' own story. Medieval chronicles describe it as a talisman against invaders, while modern graffiti from the 19th century shows travelers carving their names alongside ancient inscriptions, as if adding their own chapter to the dialogue between stone and history. Today, the arch stands unguarded, its inscriptions worn but still legible. Tourists lean against its sun-warmed sides, rarely grasping how this unassuming structure once dictated an entire city's self-perception. But perhaps that's the ultimate power of such arches. They outlast their original intent, becoming palimpsests where every era leaves its mark. The Arch of Hadrian doesn't just divide space, it invites us to question who gets to define a civilization and how memory bends under the weight of new masters. The Arch of Septimius Severus looms over Rome's forum like a stone chronicle of war, its weathered marble surfaces alive with the shouts and clashes of forgotten battles. Built in 203 AD, this triple passage arch wasn't just a tribute to the emperor's military triumphs, it was a masterclass in political theater. Every inch of its reliefs tells a story, but not the one you might expect. The wars depicted here against the Parthians in Mesopotamia weren't the clear-cut victories Roman citizens were led to believe. The reality was messier, costly campaigns, negotiated truces, and territories won only to be lost again. Yet the arch transforms this complexity into a singular narrative of divine-backed conquest, a reminder that history belongs to those who carve it in stone. Climb the arch's steps today, and you'll find yourself eye level with panels so detailed they could be stone documentaries. Roman legions storm fortress walls, their armor meticulously rendered. Parthian soldiers flee in chaos, their exotic trousers and curved swords marking them as foreign, other. One panel shows Severus and his sons, Caracalla and Geta, standing tall amid the carnage, a carefully crafted image of dynastic unity. But here's what's chilling. Just years after the arch's completion, Caracalla would murder Geta, scrubbing his brother's image from monuments across the empire. The arch's original inscriptions, once praising both sons, were chiseled away, leaving ghostly gaps where Geta's name once stood. Even in celebration, this arch couldn't escape Rome's cycle of violence. The location was no accident. Planted at the forum's western end, the arch anchored a processional route where returning armies would march, their loot and prisoners on display. Citizens craning their necks would see the emperor's exploits literally towering above them, a stone reminder of where power flowed, yet the arch hid ingenious subtleties. The central reliefs are positioned at an angle, forcing viewers to physically turn. A deliberate act of engagement that made the scenes feel immersive, almost cinematic. And the choice of Libyan marble wasn't just aesthetic, it was a nod to Severus's North African roots, a rare acknowledgement of an emperor from the provinces. What most miss are the smaller, telling details. Look closely at the battle scenes and you'll spot Roman engineers building bridges, a quiet tribute to logistics over brute force. The goddess Victory appears repeatedly, but she's not just crowning soldiers, she's inscribing shields, a sly suggestion that Rome's dominance was as much about record-keeping as spears. Even the arch's height played tricks. From ground level, the upper panels appear slightly distorted, a perspective correction ensuring clarity for viewers below. This wasn't just art, it was propaganda engineered for mass consumption. Time has softened the arch's edges, but not its contradictions. Medieval Romans used it as part of a fortress, its niches filled with crossbow slits. Renaissance artists sketched its reliefs as models of heroic composition, unaware of the bloodier truths behind the scenes. Today, pigeons nest in the same crevices where stone legionaries still charge, frozen mid-battle. The Arch of Septimius Severus endures not just as a monument to conquest, but as a testament to how power sculpts memory, and how even the mightiest narratives can't fully erase the fractures beneath. The Arch of Galerius in Thessaloniki is a stone scroll unfurling the last gasp of Roman imperial ambition, its spiraling friezes whispering of an empire straining to hold itself together. Built around 298 AD, this crimson brick monument celebrates Emperor Galerius's victories over the Sassanids. But look beyond the triumphal carvings and you'll see a deeper story etched into every curve. Unlike the stark propaganda of earlier arches, this one pulses with motion. Persian chariots careening in defeat, Roman cavalry charging in perfect unison, all carved in a continuous spiral that pulls the viewer into the chaos of battle. The genius lies in the perspective. Figures shrink and swell as they wind around the arch, creating the illusion of depth on a flat surface, a technique centuries ahead of its time. What makes this arch truly revealing is how it mirrors Rome's crumbling unity. Galerius shared power in the Tetrarchy, a four-emperor system meant to stabilize the empire, yet the friezes show him alone receiving tribute, his co-rulers conspicuously absent. The message was clear: even in a divided empire, glory belonged to individuals. The Persian king Narseh appears not as a barbaric foe but kneeling in dignified surrender, his robes meticulously detailed, a nod to the Sassanid sophistication that earlier archers would never concede. This wasn't just art, it was diplomatic language in stone, acknowledging that Rome's enemies could no longer be dismissed as savages. The arch's location tells another tale. Thessaloniki wasn't Rome. It was a Greek city on the empire's eastern fringe, chosen because Galerius needed his victories visible where threats loomed largest. The spiral design itself may have drawn inspiration from Mesopotamian motifs, a subtle admission that Roman art was absorbing ideas from the very cultures it conquered. Even the materials whispered of change. The brick core, cheaper and faster to build than solid marble, hints at an empire cutting corners to maintain its grandeur. Today, only fragments remain, but the surviving panels are shockingly vivid. In one, Galerius thrusts a spear into a Persian soldier, while winged victories crown him, except the soldier's face shows quiet resolve, not terror. Another scene depicts Romans and Persians in almost identical armor, a startling departure from us versus them narratives. Most poignant is a panel showing the emperor presiding over sacrifices. The traditional pagan rites are rendered with anxious precision, as if trying to ward off the Christianity already gnawing at Rome's foundations. Standing before these carvings, you're witnessing an empire perform its own mythology, where the script is fraying. The Arch of Galerius doesn't just commemorate battles, it captures the moment Rome began to see itself not as eternal conqueror, but as one player in a wider, shifting world. The stones seem to know what history would soon confirm. No amount of carved victory could stop the tides of change. The Arch of Constantine rises beside the Colosseum like a colossal scrapbook of Roman history, its towering presence stitched together with fragments of older, grander monuments. Built in 315 AD to celebrate Constantine's victory at the Milvian Bridge, this arch is more than a triumph. It's a Frankenstein's masterpiece of recycled art. Nearly every panel, frieze, and statue was pillaged from structures honoring emperors like Trajan, Hadrian, and Marcus Aurelius. But this wasn't mere plunder, it was a calculated act of political alchemy. By grafting his name onto Rome's greatest leaders, Constantine wasn't just borrowing their glory, he was rewriting lineage, positioning himself as the natural heir to their legacy. Look closely, and the arch reveals its patchwork genius. The roundels above the side arches were snatched from a monument to Hadrian, their scenes of hunting and sacrifice carefully retained except for the faces. Hadrian's features were chiseled away and replaced with Constantine's, a literal mask of continuity. The 8 rectangular panels along the attic, those belonged to Marcus Aurelius, showing his battles against Germanic tribes. Constantine's artisans added subtle touches, crosses discreetly carved into shields, transforming pagan victories into proto-Christian triumphs. Even the Dacian prisoners flanking the top were spoils from Trajan's Forum, their stoic faces now framing Constantine's narrative. What's truly groundbreaking is how the arch bridges 2 worlds. The older, repurposed reliefs showcase classical artistry, fluid drapery, dynamic poses, idealized beauty. But the new sections, carved specifically for Constantine, are stiffer, more hierarchical. In one panel, the emperor hands out largest to citizens, his figure rigid and oversized, while the recipients crowd beneath him like dolls. This shift wasn't artistic decline, it was a visual manifesto. The fluid naturalism of the past gave way to a new order, one where authority loomed large and unapproachable, reflecting Christianity's rising influence with its emphasis on divine hierarchy. The arch's Christian symbolism hides in plain sight. The famous inscription credits Constantine's victory to divine instinct, divine inspiration, a carefully vague phrase that pagans could attribute to Sol Invictus, while Christians read as tacit endorsement of their god. The battle scenes avoid explicit Christian imagery, but the message was clear enough to contemporaries. This was the arch of an emperor who'd seen a cross in the sky before battle and wielded it as a talisman. Even the arch's position was charged with meaning. It anchored the route of triumphal processions, forcing pagan generals to parade beneath what would soon become a Christian empire's emblem. Yet for all its calculated messaging, the Arch of Constantine couldn't escape irony. The very spolia meant to legitimize Constantine's rule now serve as a time capsule of the art he helped eclipse. Those stolen reliefs of Marcus Aurelius, with their nuanced humanity, outshine the stiff formality of Constantine's editions. The arch stands as both triumph and unintended eulogy, a monument to an emperor who borrowed the past to build the future, even as that future rendered the past obsolete. Walk beneath its shadow today, and you're treading not just on history, but on the layers of storytelling that shape it. The Arch of Trajan in Benevento stands not as a celebration of conquest, but as a stone love letter to the quiet power of infrastructure. While most Roman arches trumpet military victories, this remarkably intact monument, built between 114 and 117 AD, sings a different tune, one of roads built, harbors dredged, and grain distributed. Every inch of its marble surface tells a story of how empire was maintained not just with swords, but with shovels and scales. Carved reliefs wrap around the arch like a scroll unfurling Trajan's civic miracles. Here, the emperor isn't trampling foes, but measuring out wheat to citizens during a famine. There, he shakes hands with local officials, his toga-clad figure radiating approachability rather than divine remove. One panel shows him overseeing the construction of the Via Traiana, a vital road cutting through the southern Italian countryside, proof that connectivity mattered as much as conquest. These scenes weren't vanity projects, they were visual blueprints of imperial ideology, showing subject cities that loyalty to Rome meant prosperity. What makes this arch extraordinary is its provincial context. Benevento wasn't Rome, it was a strategic crossroads in Campania, chosen precisely because it amplified Trajan's message to local elites. The reliefs speak a visual dialect blending Roman grandeur with regional touches. The depiction of the harbor at Ancona includes local fishing boats, while scenes of sacrifice feature Italic deities alongside Jupiter. This wasn't just art, it was diplomatic code assuring allies they could keep their identity while reaping Rome's benefits. The technical mastery still stuns. The arch's vaulted passage preserves original bronze letters from its dedication inscription, each one painstakingly anchored into the marble, an extravagance most arches lost to metal thieves centuries ago. Sunlight strikes the interior friezes at noon, illuminating details like the ropes used to unload grain ships, or the folds in a merchant's cloak as he receives tax relief. These weren't generic symbols, they were documentary details proving Trajan's gifts were tangible. Yet beneath the propaganda lies a clever gamble. By showcasing civic projects instead of battles, Trajan reframed what empire meant. The arch's location at the start of the Via Traiana forced every traveler to pass beneath images of Roman generosity before entering Italy's hinterlands. It was soft power rendered in stone, a reminder that roads, not ramparts, were the true ligaments of empire. Today, as you walk through its shadow, you're treading the same stones as ancient traders, who likely glanced up at those reliefs and wondered if peace might indeed profit them more than rebellion. The Arch of Orange doesn't just dominate its namesake French town, it rewrites the rules of what a triumphal arch can be. While most Roman arches celebrated victories on land, this first-century masterpiece, stretching nearly 60 feet high, boasts something extraordinary: intricate carvings of naval warfare, a rarity in Roman monumental art. Positioned like a sentinel on the vital Agrippan Way, the arch wasn't merely decorative, it was a psychological weapon. Every traveler passing between Gaul and Italy would have craned their neck at its reliefs of captured weapons, chained prisoners, and most strikingly, the prows of defeated ships mounted like trophies. These weren't just battle scenes, they were a calculated display of Rome's dominance over both sea and land, a message to rebellious Gallic tribes that resistance was futile. What sets this arch apart is the visceral detail of its carvings. On the north side, Roman soldiers drag barbarian warriors by their hair, their faces twisted in defeat. Nearby, stacks of Celtic shields and armor are rendered with such precision you can almost hear them clatter. But the real marvel is the naval panel, where triremes lock in combat, their oars splintering under the force of rams. Scholars believe this commemorates Rome's decisive sea battles against the Massilians during Caesar's civil war, a reminder that even Rome's Mediterranean rivals fell before its might. The artistry here is more than propaganda. It's a masterclass in stone, with waves chiseled to appear fluid and sailors' robes billowing as if caught in a real sea breeze. The arch's location reveals another layer of genius. Orange sat at a cultural crossroads where Romanized Gauls mixed with holdouts clinging to Celtic traditions. By placing this arch along the Agrippan Way, a highway built to connect conquered territories, Rome ensured its message reached both allies and rebels. Local chieftains riding to negotiate terms would pass beneath warships carved larger than life, a none too subtle hint about the cost of defiance. Even the arch's orientation was strategic. Its decorated sides faced approaching traffic, forcing viewers to absorb its imagery before entering the town. Yet for all its martial boldness, the arch hides a quiet irony. Many of the legionaries depicted were likely Gauls themselves, recruited into Rome's armies. The very people conquered by Rome were now enforcing its will, a paradox carved in stone. Time has worn some faces smooth, but the tension remains between victor and vanquished, between the empire's brutality and its astonishing ability to assimilate. Today, as the Provençal sun sets behind its weathered reliefs, the Arch of Orange stands as both war memorial and mirror, reflecting how conquests are never as simple as the monuments suggest. Tucked between the rolling hills of northern Morocco, the Arch of Caracalla in Volubilis stands as a quiet revolution in stone, a monument where Roman grandeur meets African sunlight on equal terms. Built in 217 AD, this arch commemorates Emperor Caracalla's grant of Roman citizenship to free inhabitants of the empire, a political stunt that played out differently here on the empire's edge. Unlike the bombastic arches of Rome, this structure hums with a collaborative spirit, its design fusing imperial Roman templates with distinctively North African flourishes. The columns framing its single passage aren't typical Roman orders but locally quarried marble, their bases carved with Berber geometric motif, subtle nods to the craftsmen who built them. Even the arch's proportions feel different, slightly squatter and more grounded, as if acknowledging the wind-swept plains stretching beyond it. What makes this arch revelatory is how it functioned in daily life. Volubilis wasn't just a military outpost, it was a thriving agricultural hub where olive oil and grain fed Rome's provinces. The arch anchored the city's Decumanus Maximus, its passage framing the sunset during solstices, a celestial alignment that may have held meaning for both Roman sun gods and indigenous solar deities. Local merchants would have passed beneath it daily, their carts loaded with amphorae, while Latin inscriptions overhead declared their newfound citizenship rights. This was empire as a two-way street. Rome offered status, but Volubilis gave back wealth, and the arch stood as a silent broker between them. The arch's decorative program tells its own story of cultural negotiation. Traditional Roman victory symbols, eagles, wreaths share space with carvings of wheat sheaves and grapevines, celebrating the land's fertility rather than military conquest. One weathered relief even shows what might be a Berber tribal leader shaking hands with a Roman official, their figures equal in size, an unusual visual parity for imperial art. Some scholars argue the arch's missing statuary, only the bases remain, likely included local dignitaries alongside the emperor, a radical departure from Rome's usual hierarchy. Today, the arch's isolation speaks volumes. While Roman monuments in Europe were endlessly reused, this one was left remarkably intact, spared by its distance from later empires' struggles. The same winds that once carried the scent of olive presses now whistle through its open passage, where the original bronze letters of its dedication once glittered. They're long gone, but the arch's quiet defiance remains, proof that Rome's farthest provinces weren't just takers of culture, but shapers of it. Standing here, you can almost hear the echoes of a conversation in stone, one where Africa didn't just answer Rome, but answered back. The Arch of Augustus in Rimini stands as a quiet revolutionary, a structure so unassuming it's easy to miss its seismic impact. Built in 27 BCE, this isn't just the oldest surviving Roman triumphal arch, it's the architectural blueprint that would inspire centuries of imperial propaganda. Unlike the later, flashier arches in Rome, this one wears its power lightly. A single vault of white Istrian stone, clean lines, no carved battle scenes, just the raw geometry of authority. But that simplicity is deceptive. Every element, from its placement to its proportions, was a calculated statement about a new era dawning under Rome's first emperor. Positioned at the terminus of the Via Flaminia, where the road met Rimini's harbor, the arch functioned as both gateway and billboard. Travelers arriving from Rome would pass beneath its shadow, stepping from the empire's heart into its expanding periphery. The inscription, now faded but still legible to those who know where to look, declares it dedicated to the restoration of the Via Flaminia and the principal roads of Italy. No mention of military glory, just infrastructure, and that was the genius. Augustus wasn't just building roads, he was building loyalty, tying distant cities to Rome's core through tangible benefits. The arch's very existence whispered a promise: follow us and we'll connect you to the world. What's astonishing is how modern the design feels. the arch lacks the decorative excess of later monuments, relying instead on harmonic ratios that make it appear both massive and elegant. Its single opening spans nearly 30 feet, wide enough to accommodate marching legions or laden trade carts, while the attic above once held a bronze statue of Augustus in a 4-horse chariot, a nod to his deified status. But look closer and you'll spot subtle innovations. The engaged columns flanking the arch aren't purely Greek or Etruscan, but a hybrid signaling Rome's emerging artistic confidence. Even the choice of Rimini mattered. This wasn't a major capital, but a strategic node, proof that Augustus's vision extended beyond showy displays in the Forum. Time has been both kind and cruel to the arch. The medieval citizens of Rimini, perhaps sensing its symbolic weight, incorporated it into their city walls, sparing it the fate of so many recycled monuments. But the bronze letters of its original inscription were pried out, leaving ghostly slots in the marble. Today, cars buzz beneath its curve, their exhaust slowly darkening the stone, yet the arch retains an eerie authority. Stand beneath it at dusk, and you'll notice how the setting sun aligns with its passage twice a year, likely coinciding with dates significant to Augustus's reign. Whether intentional or serendipitous, the effect is the same, a reminder that even the simplest arches were never just structures. They were celestial anchors, political manifestos, and silent partners in the theater of empire. What makes this arch truly timeless isn't its age, but its restraint. In an era when rulers shouted their achievements, Augustus chose to whisper. The Arch of Rimini doesn't boast of conquest. It speaks of unity, of roads that bind rather than walls that divide. And perhaps that's why it still stands when so many grander monuments have crumbled, because the most enduring power isn't carved in reliefs of battle, but in the quiet certainty of stone that knows it belongs. The Arch of Marcus Aurelius in Tripoli stands as a silent witness to the ebb and flow of empires, its sun-bleached marble holding stories of conquest, adaptation, and unexpected survival. Built around 165 AD, this arch wasn't just a celebration of the emperor's campaigns against Germanic tribes. It was a bridge between worlds, physically and culturally. Unlike the bombastic arches of Rome, this North African monument carries a quieter authority, its well-preserved reliefs offering a masterclass in how imperial propaganda was tailored for local eyes. The scenes carved into its surface don't just show battles, they depict Marcus Aurelius as a philosopher king, receiving surrenders with a raised hand rather than a sword, a nod to his reputation for stoic wisdom even in war. What makes this arch extraordinary is its dual life. Originally erected in the Roman city of modern Tripoli, it later became absorbed into the fabric of Islamic rule. During the medieval period, the arch was incorporated into the walls of a bustling souk, its classical friezes now overlooking spice merchants and scholars. The Ottomans went further, building the towering Ahmed Pasha Karamanli Mosque literally around it in the 18th century, its minarets framing the ancient Roman stones. This wasn't destruction, it was repurposing, a testament to the arch's enduring symbolic power across faiths and eras. The reliefs themselves tell a layered story. Roman soldiers parade with captured Germanic shields, but look closely at the stone's surface and you'll find later Arabic graffiti, names and prayers etched by those who saw the arch not as a foreign relic, but as part of their own landscape. The craftsmanship here rivals anything in Rome. One panel shows the emperor performing a sacrifice, the folds of his toga so delicately rendered you can almost hear the cloth rustle. Another depicts bound prisoners whose facial features, distinctly Northern European, prove the carvers worked from real-life models, likely captured tribesmen brought south. But the true marvel is the arch's resilience. While earthquakes toppled Libya's other Roman monuments, this one endured, its foundation stones cleverly set into a natural bedrock outcropping. Even the marble, quarried from Greece, seems to have defied the centuries, its surface resisting the salt-laden winds that eat away at softer stone. today the arch exists in a kind of temporal limbo. Italian archaeologists partially restored it in the 1930s, adding a new keystone that clashes deliberately with the original, a colonial statement as much as a conservation effort. Yet despite these layers of reinterpretation, the arch's core message remains: stand beneath it at noon when sunlight pierces through its vault, and you'll see how the reliefs catch the light at staggered angles, creating a flickering effect like pages turning in a history book. It's a fitting illusion for a monument that has been rewritten, and revered by so many generations, each seeing their own reflection in the stone. The Arch of Dolabella doesn't demand attention like Rome's grand triumphal monuments, it simply endures. Tucked between the Caelian and Palatine hills, this unassuming marble archway, built in 10 AD by the consuls Dolabella and Silanus, began as a modest city gate. No soaring reliefs of battle scenes, no inscriptions boasting imperial glory, just a single, elegant vault that quietly supported the weight of history. But here's what makes it extraordinary. Centuries after its construction, this arch was repurposed as a critical pillar of Rome's water system, carrying the mighty Aqua Claudia aqueduct across the city's skyline. What started as a boundary marker became a lifeline, proving that Rome's genius wasn't just in conquest but in adaptation. Walk beneath its shadow today, and you'll notice the grooves where lead pipes once snaked along its upper edges, channeling fresh mountain water to the bustling neighborhoods below. The arch's sturdy travertine blocks, precisely fitted without mortar, held up against the constant rush of water, a testament to engineering that prioritized function over flourish. While other arches crumbled under their own grandeur, the Arch of Dolabella thrived precisely because it was ordinary. Medieval builders, recognizing its durability, left it untouched while scavenging fancier monuments for materials. Even the aqueduct's collapse in the 6th century didn't doom it. The arch simply settled into a new role as a neighborhood landmark, its hollowed-out upper channel now home to nesting birds. The real magic lies in the layers of history pressed into its stones. Look closely, and you'll spot patches of later brickwork where medieval masons repaired the aqueduct conduit, their rougher craftsmanship contrasting with the smooth Roman marble. The arch's sides bear faint scars from centuries of cartwheels and passing crowds, where patterns that chart the pulse of daily Roman life long after emperors faded into myth. Unlike the Arch of Titus or Constantine, this structure never needed to shout its importance. Its survival speaks volumes. What's most poignant is how the arch mirrors Rome itself. It wasn't built to awe but to serve, and in that humility it outlasted flashier rivals. The Aqua Claudia brought water to public baths and fountains, but the Arch of Dolabella was the silent workhorse that made it possible. Today, with the aqueduct long gone, the arch stands as a bridge between two Romes, one of imperial ambition, the other of gritty resilience. Visitors might overlook it for the Colosseum's roar, but those who pause can hear the echo of rushing water and the whispers of a city that knew how to reinvent itself stone by stone. The Arch of the Sergii in Pula doesn't roar with imperial grandeur. It whispers a family's love and loss into the cobblestone streets of modern Croatia. Built around 29 BCE by the wealthy Sergii family, this golden-hued arch stands not as a monument to military conquest, but to a son lost too soon. Step closer and the delicate carvings reveal their intimacy. Garlands of oak leaves symbolizing strength, flanked by winged victories whose faces carry an unusual softness, more mournful than triumphant. This was no state-funded project. Every dinar came from the family's purse, transforming a public gateway into a private memorial that just happened to grace the city's entrance. What makes this arch remarkable is how it balances personal sorrow with civic pride. The dedicatory inscription names Lucius Sergius Lepidus, a military tribune who died young, likely in the turbulent years following Caesar's assassination. But his family didn't just etch his name, they framed it with carvings of legionary helmets and shields. subtly asserting that his service mattered to Rome even if his life was cut short. The Corinthian columns aren't merely decorative. Their elegantly scrolled capitals mirror those on Augustus's own monuments, a quiet claim that the Sergii belonged to Rome's emerging elite. This was grief dressed in the language of power, a family's pain made permanent in the same stone as empire builders. The arch's placement speaks volumes. It anchored Pulla's eastern gate, ensuring every visitor passed beneath the Sergii's tribute. Yet look at the side panels and you'll find scenes utterly unlike the conquest narratives of Roman state arches. Here, two bulls, symbols of sacrifice, stand calmly, their heads bowed as if in quiet offering. Above them, the frieze shows a banquet scene, not of warriors celebrating victory, but of a family sharing a meal, their reclining figures radiating companionship rather than conquest. Even the arch's proportions feel intentionally welcoming, its single passage wide and low enough to feel approachable, as if inviting the community to share in remembrance. Time has polished the arch's details but preserved its emotional weight. The original bronze letters announcing Lucius's name are long gone, but their recessed slots still trace the shape of his memory in the stone. Renaissance artists sketched its reliefs as models of understated elegance, while modern passers-by lean against its sun-warmed sides, often unaware they're touching a 2,000-year-old embrace in marble. Unlike the hollow grandeur of imperial arches, this one hums with humanity, proof that Rome's true power lay not just in its armies, but in the quiet acts of remembrance that outlasted them. The Sergii family could have built a tomb. Instead, they gave their son a threshold, ensuring his memory would forever be part of Pulla's living story. The Arch of Germanicus in Saints stands as a quiet diplomat in stone, its elegant curves telling a story of cultural negotiation rather than conquest. Built in 18 or 19 AD, this understated monument honors not just the famed general Germanicus, but his adoptive father Tiberius, a deliberate pairing that reveals Rome's strategy in Gaul. Unlike the bombastic arches of Rome, this single vaulted structure lacks scenes of battle. Instead, its power lies in what's missing. The inscriptions speak of the Roman people and the emperor, but the carvings show no subjugated foes, no spoils of war. This was soft power in marble, designed to flatter local elites into embracing Roman rule without the sting of humiliation. What makes this arch extraordinary is its journey through time. Originally straddling the Roman road leading into Santorum modern Saints, it was dismantled in the 19th century to make way for a quay, only to be painstakingly rebuilt mere meters away using the original stones. Today, it stands beside the Charente River, its reflection rippling in water that once carried Gallic trade goods to Roman markets. The relocation itself is a testament to its symbolic weight. Locals fought to preserve what might seem like a minor provincial monument, recognizing its role as the city's birth certificate. The arch's Corinthian columns, though weathered, still carry traces of the original stucco that once made them gleam like white gold against the Gaulish sky. Look closer at the dedicatory inscription and you'll spot the fingerprints of cultural assimilation. The names of the arch's benefactors, Gaius Julius Rufus and his family, betray their identity, Gauls who'd climbed the social ladder by embracing Roman citizenship. Their wealth likely came from the wine trade, Saints' economic lifeline, and this arch was their ticket into the imperial inner circle. The structure's proportions mirror contemporary arches in Rome, but with subtle Gallic twists. The attic is shorter, the vault wider, as if breathing space into imperial formalism. Even the choice of local limestone instead of imported marble whispers of a blended identity. The arch's true genius lies in its mundane purpose. This wasn't just a monument, it was a toll gate, a customs checkpoint where goods entering the city were taxed. Every merchant passing beneath it was reminded that Rome's peace came with price tags but also with perks. Roads stayed safe, markets thrived, and ambitious Gauls could become Romans in all but ancestry. Today, as tourists photograph its sun-warmed flanks, they're standing at the exact spot where Gaul's Romanization wasn't forced, but franchised, where local leaders decided that joining the empire might just be better than fighting it. The Arch of Germanicus endures not as a symbol of defeat, but of a deal struck in stone, one that shaped France's destiny 2,000 years before it was called France. Hidden in the rolling countryside north of Rome, the Arch of Malborghetto whispers secrets from one of history's most pivotal nights. Unlike the grand triumphal arches of the city, this unassuming four-sided structure, more fortress than monument, may have been the very spot where Emperor Constantine dreamed of a cross and heard the fateful words, "In this sign conquer." Built in the early 4th century AD, its thick brick walls and strategic position along the Via Flaminia suggest it wasn't just a way station but a command center. Archaeologists have found remnants of military ramps and storage pits, clues that this quiet arch once buzzed with the tension of an army on the eve of battle. The real mystery lies in its transformation. Centuries after Constantine's victory at the Milvian Bridge, the arch was hollowed out and reborn as a church, its pagan past literally baptized into new purpose. Step inside today and you're standing in a palimpsest of faith and power. The original Roman vaults still soar overhead, but medieval frescoes of saints now cover walls where battle maps may once have hung. A tiny apse was carved into what might have been Constantine's sleeping quarters, its humble altar standing where an emperor's camp bed once lay. The arch's four identical facades, each with a single window, create an eerie symmetry. Light moves through the space like a sundial, marking hours that have seen empires rise and fall. Local farmers still call it the Arch of the Miracle, preserving oral traditions of divine visions predating even Constantine's famous dream. What makes Malborghetto extraordinary is its refusal to fit neat categories. The arch lacks the propaganda carvings of Rome's official monuments, yet its very plainness speaks volumes. This wasn't artful persuasion. It was a working war room repurposed by generations who sensed its sacred charge. 19th century renovations revealed something astonishing. Fragments of gilded glass embedded in the mortar, suggesting someone, perhaps a Gothic king after Rome's fall, tried to make its walls glitter like the heavens. Even the name Malborghetto, meaning unfortunate little town, hides irony, as the site became anything but unfortunate when Constantine's victory here birthed Christian Europe. Nowhere is the arch's layered history more poignant than in its floor. Excavations uncovered not just Roman coins, but pilgrim badges from the Middle Ages and Renaissance-era wax seals, proof that long after generals left, believers came. The stones themselves bear grooves from centuries of grinding grain, a humble counterpoint to its imperial origins. Unlike the Arch of Constantine in Rome, which shouts triumph, Malborghetto murmurs of adaptation, its bricks absorbing every era's hopes like a sponge. On certain mornings, when mist clings to the fields outside, you can almost hear the echoes, the clank of armor, the chants of monks, the rustle of wheat, all equally sacred in this place where history never stopped rewriting itself. The Arch of the Gavii in Verona proves that even in Rome's vast empire, family legacies could carve themselves into stone. Unlike the monumental arches commissioned by emperors, this elegant 1st century structure was built by a local clan, the Gavii family, to celebrate their own rise from provincial merchants to Roman power players. Standing just outside Verona's ancient gates, its single vault frames the Alpine foothills with quiet pride, every inch whispering a story of social climbing done right. What makes this arch extraordinary isn't its size, it's the audacity of its inscriptions. The bold Latin letters chiseled across its attic don't praise emperors or gods. They name 4 Gavii brothers as both architects and patrons, a cheeky flex in an era when most elites deferred to imperial vanity. One brother, Lucius Gavius Priscus, gets extra billing as a priest of the imperial cult, proof the family knew how to play the political game. The carvings are deliberately Roman in style, Corinthian columns, refined acanthus leaves, but with Venetic touches in the stonework, a visual handshake between local identity and imperial ambition. This arch was more than a vanity project. It was a social ladder cast in limestone. Its position along the Via Postumia ensured every trader entering Verona passed beneath the Gavii name, a constant reminder of who controlled the region's commerce. Recent excavations revealed workshops nearby, suggesting the family didn't just fund the arch, they likely supplied its materials from their own quarries, turning civic generosity into clever advertising. But the real genius lies in what's missing. There are no battle scenes, no captive barbarians, just a simple dedication to the Gavii's parents. In a world where military service paved the road to status, these merchant princes built their monument on wealth and wit instead. The arch's proportions mirror Rome's official designs, but scaled down to human dimensions, as if to say Verona's elites could match the capital's sophistication without its pomp. Time has been kind to the Gavii's gamble. While imperial arches crumbled under their own propaganda weight, this humble structure endured, its stones repurposed into medieval walls but later meticulously reconstructed. Today, as pedestrians duck beneath its shadow to avoid the rain, they're walking the same path as Roman muleteers who once glanced up at those inscriptions and knew exactly who ruled Verona, not just Caesar in distant Rome, but the savvy family that made empire work for them. The Arch of the Argentarii hides in plain sight near Rome's ancient cattle market, its weathered surface concealing a turbulent tale of money, memory, and deliberate erasure. Commissioned not by emperors but by wealthy bankers and cattle merchants in 204 AD, this unassuming gateway blends commerce with quiet rebellion. At first glance, it resembles a typical Roman arch, compact, single-vaulted, adorned with Corinthian pilasters, but the closer you look, the stranger it becomes. The reliefs are a patchwork of missing faces and chiseled-out figures, casualties of Rome's brutal practice of damnatio memoriae, the condemnation of memory. This wasn't state-sponsored propaganda. It was a private flex by upwardly mobile traders who dared to immortalize themselves beside emperors, only to fall victim to the empire's shifting loyalties. What makes this arch extraordinary is its origin story. The Argentarii were money changers and livestock dealers, professions considered vulgar by Rome's elite. Yet here they pooled resources to build a monument at the Forum Boarium's edge where their businesses thrived. The dedicatory inscription names not just Emperor Septimius Severus and his family, but the guild members themselves, a bold move in a society where private citizens rarely shared marble space with imperial portraits. The carvings originally showed Severus, his wife Julia Domna, and their sons Caracalla and Geta in scenes of sacrifice, their faces serene and divine. But after Caracalla murdered Geta in 211 AD, the arch became a crime scene in stone. Every trace of Geta was systematically erased, his figure gouged out, his name scraped from inscriptions, leaving ghostly voids where a brother once stood. Even Julia Domna's image was partially defaced during later purges, her eyes and mouth meticulously obliterated by chisels. The arch's commercial context adds another layer of intrigue. Its position near the Temple of Hercules, where merchants swore oaths on their transactions, suggests it may have functioned as both advertisement and sacred seal. Cattle dealers passing beneath its vault would have seen the original reliefs of imperial blessings, a not-so-subtle hint that their guild had Rome's stamp of approval. Some scholars believe the arch even served as a ceremonial gate for livestock auctions. Imagine oxen shuffling under the gaze of chipped-away gods. The remaining carvings whisper of this mercantile world. One surviving panel shows a bull being led to sacrifice, its muscles carved with such precision you can almost smell the smoke of the altar. Time has blurred the arch's contradictions. Medieval looters stripped its metal fixtures, while Renaissance artists mistook its damaged reliefs for ancient vandalism. Today, it stands wedged between a church and a parking lot, its scars telling parallel stories of merchants who briefly touched power, and of an empire that couldn't decide whether to celebrate or obliterate its own history. The strangest detail, the guild's name was left untouched. However violently Rome turned on its rulers, the money changers' claim on immortality remained carved in stone, proof that while imperias could be erased, commerce always endured. Tucked in the shadow of its colossal neighbor, the Arch of Tiberius in orange might be small in stature, but it carries mysteries disproportionate to its size. Often overshadowed by the towering Arch of Orange just meters away, this unassuming single-vaulted structure whispers secrets about Roman power dynamics that its grander counterpart shouts in stone. While the larger arch blazes with naval battles and captured arms, the Arch of Tiberius, if that's truly its name, lacks inscriptions or reliefs, leaving scholars to piece together its story like a puzzle missing half its pieces. The attribution to Tiberius isn't even certain. It's a modern guess based on architectural style and the emperor's known ties to the region. Yet this very ambiguity makes it fascinating. The arch's design offers subtle clues. Built from the same golden limestone as its neighbor, it features a simpler, more austere aesthetic. No spiraling battle scenes, just clean lines and modest Corinthian pilasters. Its proportions align with early 1st century arches, but the real giveaway lies in its placement. Positioned at a right angle to the larger arch, it seems to anchor a secondary pathway, perhaps a sacred route leading to a temple long vanished. Some theorize it marked the boundary of a sacred precinct, while others suggest it functioned as a ceremonial gate for religious processions distinct from the military pomp of the main arch. The absence of dedicatory plaques is telling. This wasn't a monument meant to brag to the masses, but a space for quieter, more elusive rituals. What truly sets this arch apart is its relationship to its showier neighbor. The two arches form a deliberate pair, framing movement through the city in a way that mirrors Rome's own dualities: military and spiritual, imperial and local. While the larger arch screamed Roman dominance to passing traders, the smaller one may have served Orange's local elite, a nod to the delicate dance between conquerors and the conquered. Excavations revealed traces of altars nearby, hinting at offerings made here, perhaps to reconcile Roman gods with Gallic deities. The arch's weathering patterns tell another tale. Its northern side, sheltered from the mistral winds, preserves faint traces of what might have been painted designs, suggesting it was once vibrant with colors now lost to time. The most tantalizing theory: this arch might be the missing link in a celestial alignment. When viewed from the larger arch at dawn during the summer solstice, the rising sun would have framed its opening, a phenomenon that could have guided annual festivals or sacrifices. Its unadorned surface becomes a canvas for the imagination. Did priests pass beneath it bearing sacred objects? Did Tiberius himself, that reluctant emperor, ever stand here during his campaigns in Gaul? The stones won't say, but their silence speaks volumes about how Rome's power wasn't just carved in triumphant reliefs, but woven into the very fabric of daily life, through arches that asked questions instead of giving answers. The Arch of the Golden Gate in Constantinople wasn't just an entrance, it was a stage for imperial theater, where every brick whispered of divine right and earthly power. Built into the mighty Theodosian walls in the late 4th century, this triple-arched monument gleamed with sheets of polished marble and gilded bronze, catching the first and last light of the day like a beacon. Imagine the scene: Byzantine emperors robed in purple and gold, passing through its central portal after military triumphs, their chariots rolling over crushed porphyry dust as crowds roared. But this gate wasn't for everyday use. It was reserved for the most sacred of state rituals, a physical embodiment of the idea that Constantinople wasn't just a city, it was the new Rome ordained by God himself. What set this arch apart wasn't just its opulence, but its layered symbolism. Flanking statues of winged victories held laurel wreaths above the central arch, while reliefs depicted emperors receiving blessings from Christ, a fusion of Roman military tradition and Christian devotion. The gate's very name, golden, hinted at its celestial aspirations. Some scholars believe its gilded surfaces were designed to mirror the heavenly Jerusalem described in Scripture. Even its construction defied practicality. The gateway's massive doors were said to be reinforced with iron and studded with precious metals, so heavy they required a small army to open. This wasn't just architecture, it was a bulwark against chaos, a statement that Byzantium's glory would endure as long as those doors remained shut to enemies. Yet the arch's fate was as dramatic as its ceremonies. After surviving sieges by Avars, Arabs, and Crusaders, it met its end not by foreign invaders but by the Ottomans themselves. When Mehmed II conquered Constantinople in 1453, he deliberately sealed the Golden Gate partly for defense, but also to sever its symbolic power. Later Ottoman rulers bricked it up entirely, as if to bury the Byzantine legacy beneath mortar, but legends persisted. Some whispered the gate would reopen one day, heralding the return of a Christian emperor to reclaim the city. Others claimed its gold had been hidden beneath the foundations, waiting to be rediscovered. Today, only a ghost of the arch remains, its outline faintly visible in the weathered Theodosian walls. Archaeologists have found traces of the original gilding in the mortar, proof that its brilliance wasn't just hyperbole, but perhaps the Golden Gate's true legacy lies in its absence. Modern Istanbul's skyline, studded with minarets, makes the lost arch all the more poignant a reminder that even the grandest symbols of empire are fleeting, and that thresholds, no matter how golden, are ultimately meant to be crossed. The Arch of the Tetrarchs in Thessaloniki doesn't just celebrate power, it fractures it, stone by stone, into 4 equal parts. Built around 300 AD, this 4-sided arch was the architectural embodiment of Diocletian's radical tetrarchy, a system where Rome was ruled not by one emperor but 4. Imagine the shock of citizens accustomed to singular rulers when they first saw this structure, a towering quadrilateral with identical arched passages facing the cardinal directions, each leading to a different corner of the empire. This wasn't just a monument, it was a stone manifesto declaring that Rome's survival depended on shared authority. What makes this arch revolutionary is how its design mirrors the Tetrarchy's delicate balance. Unlike traditional triumphal arches that lionized individual leaders, every facade here was identical. No central axis, no hierarchy in decoration. The choice of reddish-purple Thessalian marble for the entire structure was deliberate, its uniform hue symbolizing the equality of the 4 co-emperors. Even the sculptural program broke conventions. Instead of dynamic battle scenes, the arch featured static, near-identical portraits of the Tetrarchs, their faces deliberately generic to emphasize the system over the men. The message was clear. Rome no longer relied on charismatic individuals but on the machinery of shared governance. The arch's location in Thessaloniki, not Rome, speaks volumes. As Diocletian's de facto capital in the east, the city needed a visual anchor for the new political order. The Tetrarchs themselves likely gathered beneath its vaults, their meetings staged in the arch's center where all 4 passages converged, a physical metaphor for consensus. Archaeologists have found traces of bronze fittings that once held banners representing each emperor's region, transforming the arch into a living diagram of imperial administration. The structure's acoustics amplified the effect. Whispers at one corner could be heard diagonally, reinforcing the idea of constant communication between rulers. Yet the arch's true innovation lies in its invisible engineering. The 4-barrel vaults intersect at perfect right angles, a geometric marvel that distributes weight so evenly the structure has survived earthquakes that toppled nearby buildings. The masons even embedded iron clamps shaped like the tetrarchy's symbol, a circle divided into 4 quadrants within the masonry, fusing political ideology with load-bearing necessity. Time, however, would expose the tetrarchy's fragility. Within decades, Constantine consolidated power, rendering the arch an artifact of a failed experiment. Medieval Thessalonians repurposed it as a defensive tower, bricking up 3 of its arches and scarring its surfaces with arrow slits, but the arch's legacy endures in unexpected ways. Its quadriphran's design inspired later Christian structures like the 4-pillared baldachins over altars, a quiet nod to how even abandoned political visions can shape sacred space. Today, as tourists weave through its passages, they're tracing the ghostly outlines of Rome's most ambitious and fleeting reinvention of itself. The Arch of the Cablas in Trier wears its history like a well-worn shoe, layered, practical, and full of unexpected character. Unlike the grand imperial arches scattered across Rome's empire, this humble structure, originally a simple Roman gate, found new life when medieval shoemakers claimed it as their guild hall. Imagine the scene, where legionnaires once marched beneath its vault, cobblers now hammered leather and haggled over prices, their workshops built right into the arch's sturdy Roman masonry. The gate's transformation wasn't just pragmatic, it was a quiet rebellion against time itself, repurposing imperial might into something profoundly human. What makes this arch extraordinary isn't its size or ornamentation, it's the sheer audacity of its reuse. The Romans built it as part of Trier's 4th century walls, a functional piece of defense with none of the decorative flourishes of triumphal arches. But when the medieval shoemakers' guild needed a headquarters, they saw potential in its cavernous interior. They bricked up one side to create a workroom, carved niches for tools into the ancient stone, and even added a second-story wooden annex where guild masters could convene. The arch's original Roman mortar still holds firm, but the grooves where cobblers sharpened their knives are just as much a part of its story. The arch's location reveals why it survived when others crumbled. Trier, once a Roman imperial capital, dwindled to a regional market town after the empire's fall. The Cablas' Arch stood at a bustling crossroads where farmers brought hides to trade, making it the perfect spot for shoemakers to anchor their business. Over time, the guild's presence sanctified the structure. Local law claimed saints had blessed its threshold, ensuring shoes made there never wore out. By the Renaissance, the arch was more than a workshop. It was a symbol of civic pride, its Roman origins blurred into myth. Look closely at the stonework today and you'll find traces of both eras. Roman numerals chiseled by legionary engineers share space with medieval mason marks, a collaborative graffiti spanning 8 centuries. The guild's coat of arms, a boot carved in relief, peers out from beside original Roman brickwork, creating a visual pun only time could write. Even the arch's nickname, Cablas' Gate, stuck long after the last cobbler left, proving that local identity can outshine imperial grandeur. The true magic of this arch lies in its ordinariness. Unlike the Arch of Constantine or the Porta Nigra nearby, it wasn't preserved for its majesty, it survived because it was useful. Every stain on its stones tells a story. The oily patches where leather was treated, the soot from guildhall hearths, the worn steps where apprentices loitered. While emperors and bishops built monuments to eternity, the shoemakers of Trier turned a Roman relic into something far more enduring, a place where daily life, in all its messy vitality, refused to fade away. The Arch of the Leper King in Cambodia doesn't just stand. It whispers from the shadows of Angkor Thom, its sandstone surface alive with figures that seem to shift in the jungle's dappled light. Unlike the grand gates of Rome or the soaring arches of Persia, this 12th century marvel hides its true purpose behind layers of myth and mystery. The name alone sends shivers, Leper King, borrowed from a local legend about a ruler afflicted with disease, though the arch predates the tale by centuries. But look past the nickname and you'll find something far more intriguing. A tunnel-like passage entirely sheathed in carvings, a stone tapestry of gods, demons, and celestial dancers frozen mid-motion. What makes this arch a riddle is its dual identity. On the surface, it resembles a royal terrace, part of Angkor Thom's ceremonial complex. But step inside, and the walls close around you with hundreds of intricately carved figures, multi-armed deities, serpent-bodied nagas, and courtly processions winding endlessly along the stone. The reliefs aren't merely decorative, they're cosmological maps depicting the Hindu universe with Mount Meru at its center. Some scholars believe the arch was a spiritual threshold where kings performed rituals to symbolically travel between earthly and divine realms. The carving's depth is deliberate torchlight would have made the figures appear to move, turning the corridor into a living, breathing portal during nighttime ceremonies. Then there's the enigma of its construction. The arch isn't freestanding but built into an older structure, its back wall originally hidden beneath earth until French archaeologists excavated it in the 19th century. This concealed section, even more finely carved than the exterior, hints at a sacred function too potent for public view. Local guides still speak of the arch's second skin, pointing to patches where the stone seems to shimmer with mineral deposits, a phenomenon some claim occurs near sites of ancient energy. But the true genius of the Leper King's arch lies in its imperfections. Unlike the precision of Roman monuments, these carvings embrace asymmetry. Apsara dancers twist at slightly different angles, gods' expressions vary minutely, as if reflecting the chaos of the cosmos. Even the arch's orientation defies simple explanation. It faces neither sunrise nor sunset, but aligns with a cluster of temples linked to healing rituals. Could this have been a place where the sick sought divine cure, giving rise to the leper legend? Or was it a stage for rituals where kings, disguised as commoners, sought wisdom from the shadows? Today, as moss creeps over the arch's weathered faces, the answers remain as elusive as the figures in its carvings. Visitors who run their fingers along the grooves often report an odd warmth in the stone, even in cool morning air. Whether trick of the light or something deeper, the Arch of the Leper King endures not just as a relic, but as a mirror reflecting our endless fascination with thresholds between the seen and unseen, between history and the stories we weave to touch it. The Arch of the Goldsmiths in Rome proves that sometimes the most revealing monuments come in the smallest packages. Tucked away near the Tiber River, this unassuming single vault, built around 200 AD, doesn't shout of emperors or conquests. Instead, it hums with the sound of hammers shaping metal, a rare stone ode to Rome's artisan class. While most triumphal arches celebrated battles, this one honored the Guild of Goldsmiths, their contributions deemed worthy of marble immortality. What survives today is a fragment, but its carvings offer a priceless window into the workshops that fueled Rome's luxury trade. Look closely at the surviving reliefs, and you'll see scenes that feel startlingly alive. Here, a craftsman bends over his workbench, engraving a delicate pattern onto a vessel. There, apprentices fan the flames of a furnace, their faces smudged with soot. The level of detail is extraordinary. Chisels hang neatly on workshop walls, scales balance precious gems, and half-finished jewelry lies scattered across tables. This wasn't idealized propaganda, it was documentary realism, a tribute to the hands that turned raw gold into the empire's most coveted status symbols. Even the arch's proportions reflect its purpose. The vault is just wide enough to accommodate a merchant's cart laden with wares, a practical touch in a city where commerce and ceremony intertwined. The arch's location near the Pons Aemilius Bridge was no accident. This was Rome's mercantile heartbeat, where traders from across the Mediterranean unloaded exotic materials, Egyptian emeralds, Indian pearls, Spanish gold, all destined for the goldsmiths' fires. The guild likely funded the arch themselves, a savvy investment in prestige that doubled as advertising. passing traders would see those reliefs and know exactly where to commission their finest tableware or diplomatic gifts. The inscriptions, now faded, originally named not just the guild but individual master craftsmen, a radical democratization of monumental space in an era when only elites typically earned such honors. What makes this arch truly remarkable is what's missing. Unlike state-sponsored monuments, there are no gods looming over the scenes, no allegories of victory, just the quiet dignity of skilled labor. One weathered panel shows a customer examining a finished piece, her finger tracing the craftsmanship, a moment of appraisal frozen in stone. Another depicts a workshop dog lounging under a bench, a touch of whimsy humanizing the marble. These details suggest the goldsmiths had unusual creative control over their own tribute, prioritizing the rhythms of daily work over imperial bombast. Time hasn't been kind to the arch, its upper sections are gone, and Renaissance builders pillaged stones for new projects, but its legacy endures in unexpected ways. The reliefs influenced Renaissance artists like Ghiberti, who studied them while designing Florence's famous baptistry doors. Today, as you run your fingers over the grooves left by ancient chisels, you're touching more than stone. You're touching the DNA of Western craftsmanship, a lineage that connects workshop benches across 2,000 years. The Arch of the Goldsmiths reminds us that empires rise and fall, but the maker's marks, whether in gold or marble, outlast them all. The Arch of the Pantheon slips under most tourists' radars, a quiet cousin to the colossal dome just steps away. But this unassuming marble gateway holds secrets about Rome's most iconic temple that even guidebooks often miss. Built during Hadrian's reign in the 2nd century AD, the arch wasn't part of the Pantheon's original design, but a later addition that reshaped the entire urban experience of approaching the sacred space. Its placement wasn't arbitrary. It framed the temple's towering portico like a picture frame, forcing visitors to pause and absorb the structure's grandeur before stepping inside. What makes this arch exceptional is its dialogue with history. The inscription across its attic declares Hadrian rebuilt the Pantheon, but archaeology reveals a sly truth: the arch actually aligns perfectly with Agrippa's earlier temple complex from 27 BCE, not Hadrian's rebuilt version. This was no accident. By anchoring his arch to Agrippa's original axis, Hadrian visually tied his reign to Augustus's golden age while subtly shifting focus toward his own architectural revolution. The arch's proportions mirror the Pantheon's portico columns, creating a rhythmic harmony between gateway and temple, as if one grew organically from the other. The arch's urban choreography is equally ingenious. Standing at the head of the Via della Rotonda, it funneled ancient processions along a carefully staged route. Worshippers would pass beneath its vault, their view of the Pantheon momentarily compressed, before emerging into the expansive plaza where the temple's full glory suddenly revealed itself. This theatrical reveal was heightened by the arch's original bronze decorations lost to time, but hinted at by fixture holes in the marble, likely polished to reflect sunlight onto the Pantheon's facade at key hours. Modern visitors might overlook the arch's most provocative feature: its mismatched materials. The lower half uses creamy lunar marble, while the upper sections employed cheaper travertine, a visual metaphor for how Roman builders prioritized impact at eye level while cutting costs above. Yet even this frugality served a purpose. The travertine's rougher texture caught shadows differently, making the arch appear to change color as the sun crossed the sky, mirroring the Pantheon's own celestial dance with light. Today, as crowds stream past obliviously, the arch's true genius lingers in its stubborn refusal to be mere ornament. It remains a temporal hinge connecting Agrippa's vision, Hadrian's ambition, and our modern gaze, all while quietly insisting that the greatest thresholds aren't always the ones we think to notice. The Arch of the Carmine in Naples wears its scars like badges of honor, a survivor in a city that has weathered eruptions, invasions, and the slow grind of centuries. Built into the formidable Aragonese walls in the 15th century, this robust brick arch wasn't designed for grandeur. It was a workhorse of defense, a choke point where the fate of Naples could be decided by the clang of swords on stone. Unlike the decorative arches of ancient Rome, the Carmine's power lies in its simplicity. A single vaulted passage flanked by towering bastions, its throat narrow enough to force attackers into single file. Every brick seems to whisper of sieges endured. The weathering isn't just from rain, but from the breath of Mount Vesuvius itself, whose periodic tantrums have coated the arch in layers of ash like geologic armor. What makes this arch remarkable isn't its beauty, but its stubborn refusal to fall. During the famous revolt of Masaniello in 1647, it became a rallying point for insurgents, its strategic position overlooking the port making it a prize fought over with pike and musket. The bullet pockmarks still visible on its northern side aren't just blemishes, they're a timeline of Naples' turbulent history, from Spanish rule to Napoleonic upheavals. Even the arch's name hints at its spiritual resilience. Carmine refers to the adjacent Carmelite monastery, whose monks quietly tended to the wounded beneath its shadow during countless conflicts. The arch became both shield and sanctuary, its thick walls absorbing prayers as readily as artillery fire. Beneath its soot-stained bricks lies an engineering secret that explains its endurance. The arch's foundation isn't just anchored to bedrock. It's interlaced with a network of ancient Roman drainage tunnels, repurposed to channel away earthquake tremors like a stone lightning rod. When Vesuvius erupted catastrophically in 1631, burying nearby neighborhoods in lava, the arch stood firm, its position on higher ground and its porous tufa stone construction allowing it to dissipate seismic shocks. Later Neapolitans, recognizing its protective genius, embedded religious icons into its niches, transforming the arch from military bulwark to communal talisman. Today, the Arch of the Carmine is a bridge between worlds. Motorcycles buzz through its passage where armored knights once clattered, and the smells of espresso and fried seafood have replaced gunpowder and sweat. But if you press your palm against its bricks at dusk when the light slants just right, you can still feel the echoes, the vibration of distant eruptions, the ghostly cadence of marching boots, and the quiet hum of resilience that defines Naples itself. This arch doesn't just mark a boundary in space, it stands as a testament to a city that has always known how to bend without breaking. The Arch of the Phaleron rises from the Athenian coastline like a silent sentinel, its weathered limestone blocks holding whispers of a time when Greece's naval might shape the Mediterranean. Unlike the grand Roman arches built to trumpet military conquests, this humble structure, just 12 feet tall and framed by two Doric columns, carries an air of quiet enigma. Archaeologists still spar over its origins. Was it a boundary marker for the ancient port of Phaleron, a shrine to forgotten sea gods, or perhaps a victory monument commemorating Athens' triumph at Salamis? The lack of inscriptions only deepens the mystery, forcing us to read clues in the arch's bones. Notice how the arch's orientation defies expectation. Instead of facing the open sea, it turns inland, framing a path toward Athens like a stage curtain parted for homecoming heroes. This subtle alignment hints at its possible role in naval rituals. After the Battle of Salamis in 480 BCE, victorious Athenian triremes would have beached nearby, their crews processing past this very spot. Some scholars argue the arch's columns, stripped of their original stucco, once gleamed with painted waves and dolphins, visual echoes of the sea that brought Athens glory. Others point to the discovery of salt-encrusted votive offerings nearby, suggesting sailors made offerings here before risky voyages. The arch's construction tells another tale. Its limestone blocks bear tool marks identical to those found on the Themistoclean walls, Athens' 5th century BCE defensive fortifications. This shared craftsmanship links the arch to the city's golden age, when naval power funded the Parthenon's construction. Yet there's a fascinating anomaly. The masonry employs an early form of the implecton technique, where rubble fill strengthens the core, a method later perfected in Roman concrete. Was this arch a prototype, a physical bridge between Greek and Roman engineering traditions? Local legends add another layer. Fishermen still speak of the dancing arch, claiming that on certain moonlit nights, shadows from its columns shift like oars cutting water. Modern LiDAR scans revealed something astonishing. The arch's foundation extends far below today's surface, suggesting it once stood taller before centuries of silt from the vanished harbor buried its base. Could this explain why no ancient texts mention it? Perhaps the arch wasn't overlooked, it was literally submerged by time. What truly captivates is the arch's stubborn refusal to fit neat categories. Unlike Roman monuments shouting imperial propaganda, this Greek enigma communicates through absence and implication. Its weathered surfaces invite us to imagine the missing pieces, the painted dedicatory plaques lost to erosion, the bronze naval trophies likely mounted on its entablature. Standing there today, with the salt breeze carrying echoes of clashing triremes, the Arch of the Phaleron feels less like a relic and more like a puzzle, one that challenges us to reconsider how maritime empires celebrated their power, not with bombast but with stones placed deliberately in the path of homeward winds. Rising from the sun-bleached stones of Delos, the Arch of the Lions isn't just a passageway, it's a silent roar carved in marble. Built around 600 BCE, this sacred structure guards the entrance to the sanctuary of Apollo with a pride of snarling lion statues, their muscular forms frozen mid-growl for nearly 3 millennia. But these aren't mere decorations, they're spiritual sentinels, their open jaws and bared teeth designed to ward off evil from the island believed to be the birthplace of Apollo and Artemis. Unlike the triumphal arches of Rome, which celebrated human conquest, this arch served a celestial purpose, aligning earthly processions with the divine rhythms of the cosmos. The lions themselves are a study in deliberate asymmetry. Originally numbering 9, each statue was carved from separate blocks of Naxian marble, their postures slightly varied, some crouching, others standing tall, as if caught in different stages of motion. This wasn't artistic inconsistency, it mirrored the Greek belief that true sacred power couldn't be contained by perfect symmetry. The way their tails curl around their haunches creates an optical illusion when viewed from the processional path below. Under the midday sun, the shadows transform them into living creatures, their silhouettes flickering like flames. Processions approaching the arch followed a choreography as precise as the carvings themselves. Worshippers carrying offerings to Apollo would pause beneath the lion's gaze, their path funneled by the arch's carefully angled walls. The alignment wasn't random during the summer solstice. Sunlight would spear through the archway to illuminate a now-lost altar, timing ceremonies with astronomical precision. Even the lion's positions held meaning, facing east toward the sacred lake where Leto was said to have given birth. Their snarls weren't just threatening but protective, shielding the island's divine legacy. What makes this arch extraordinary is its survival against all odds. Pirates looted its bronze adornments, earthquakes toppled 5 lions, and centuries of sea winds have eroded their features into ghostly visages. Yet the remaining statues still radiate an unsettling vitality. Venetian merchants mistook them for living beasts in the moonlight, while Ottoman sailors reportedly refused to anchor nearby, fearing their eyes followed passing ships. Modern conservation efforts revealed something astonishing. The lion's marble contains microscopic quartz veins that sparkle when wet, suggesting they were originally polished to glisten like celestial guardians during ritual libations. Standing before them today, you can almost hear the echoes of hymns and the scent of myrrh thick in the air. The Arch of the Lions doesn't just mark a boundary between sacred and profane. It embodies the Greek understanding of divinity as something fierce, untamed, and intimately tied to the natural world. These lions weren't decorations, they were intermediaries, their marble mouths forever open in silent communion between mortals and the gods who once walked this island. The Arch of the Elephant in Palermo doesn't just stand, it trumpets Sicily's vibrant past, its weathered limestone etched with the footprints of empires. Built in the 12th century during Norman rule, this towering gateway wears its hybrid heritage proudly. Arabesque geometric patterns dance beneath Latin inscriptions, while the marble elephant carved into its keystone seems to survey the city with quiet amusement. This isn't just an arch, it's a cultural crossroads frozen in stone, where the island's Muslim, Christian, and Byzantine influences converged into something entirely new. Look closely at the elephant's stoic face, and you'll spot more than just whimsy. In Arab tradition, elephants symbolized wisdom and strength, revered from tales of Hannibal's campaigns to stories from the 1001 Nights. The Normans, ever pragmatic adopters of local customs, repurposed the motif as a nod to Sicily's Islamic past while asserting their own dominance. The arch's double-tiered design tells the same story. Its lower half echoes the pointed arches of Moorish Spain, while the upper section blooms with Norman Romanesque flourishes, as if two architectural languages learned to speak as one. The arch's original purpose was as layered as its decorations. Part of the city's medieval walls, it guarded the route to the royal Norman palace, yet its intricate carvings suggest a ceremonial role. Historians believe it may have framed processions during the crowning of Sicilian kings, its elephant symbolizing the island's exotic wealth, spices, silks, and scholars flowing through its ports. The choice of materials whispers of this global reach. Limestone local to Palermo, but polished with techniques borrowed from Egyptian masons, its surface once gleaming with pigments made from crushed Tunisian lapis lazuli. What truly sets this arch apart is how it mirrors Sicily's golden age of tolerance. Under Norman rule, Arab geographers mapped the island alongside Jewish physicians and Greek mosaicists, all leaving their mark. The arch's construction likely involved teams from these very communities. You can spot it in the details. The Arabic-style Kufic script framing the Latin dedication isn't just decorative. It's a clever bilingual pun, readable as both a Christian prayer and a poetic ode to knowledge. Even the elephant's posture carries meaning. Its trunk curls toward a now-faded constellation chart, a nod to the astronomical advances nurtured in Palermo's multicultural courts. Time has gnawed at the arch, yet its resilience is telling. Earthquakes toppled grander Norman monuments, but this structure endured, its flexible Arab-inspired foundation absorbing shocks like a seasoned sailor riding waves. During the Renaissance, locals whitewashed its pagan carvings, only for 19th-century restorers to painstakingly uncover them. A cycle of concealment and revival mirroring Sicily's OWN Chinese letter history. Today, as citrus-scented breezes drift through its shadow, the Arch of the Elephant remains a silent diplomat, reminding us that the most enduring power isn't in erasing differences, but in building something beautiful from them. From the propaganda-laden arches of Rome to the celestial gateways of the Andes, these 30 archways are far more than relics of stone. They're living conversations with the past. Each one bends time in its own way, offering glimpses into the minds of emperors, merchants, priests, and rebels who shaped our world. Think of the Arch of Titus, where wartime plunder became political theater, or the Gateway of the Sun, where a civilization's entire cosmology was etched into a single block of sandstone. Some arches roar with imperial might, like the Arch of Septimius Severus, its fractured friezes still pulsing with battlefield chaos. Others whisper through the ages, like the Sergii's mournful tribute in Pula, where a grieving family turned personal loss into public memory. What unites them all is their role as thresholds not just between physical spaces, but between eras, ideologies, and identities. The Arch of Germanicus in Gaul shows Rome's soft power, flattering local elites into allegiance without a sword drawn, while the Cobbler's Arch in Trier proves even conquerors' monuments could be humbled by cobblers' hammers and guild meetings. And how astonishing that an arch like Malborghetto might have witnessed Constantine's vision of the cross, a single night's dream that redirected the course of history. These structures remind us that humanity's grandest ideas, power, faith, artistry, were never abstract. They were lived, fought over, and literally set in stone by hands not so different from our own. Standing before any of these arches today, you're not just seeing history, you're stepping into its current. The gold leaf may be gone, the inscriptions faded, but the questions they pose remain urgent. How do empires rise and fall? What survives when civilizations crumble? And why do we keep building portals, literal and metaphorical, between the world we know and the ones we can only imagine? So tell us, which archway transported you the furthest? Was it the elephant-guarded gateway of Palermo, where Norman kings walked beneath arabesque curves? Or perhaps the Leper King's arch in Angkor Thom, its walls writhing with celestial dancers frozen mid-ritual? Drop your favorite in the comments, and who knows, you might just inspire someone else's next journey through these ancient doorways. After all, the greatest power of these arches isn't in their grandeur, but in their endless ability to make us wonder, wander, and connect across the centuries.